Okay, so now that we're here, let's create our project. So I'm just gonna open my terminal, and inside here, let's create a node project. So I'm just gonna type npm init y, and then that's it. And now we need to install a few packages, and I'm going to install npm install. The first one is going to be express. I'm pretty sure we're going to need core since we're going to work with React. And alright, so I need another package which is called nodemon, so that's going to help us set up the development server. So save dev and nodemon. Okay, that's it. So let me create the server, the JS file, and here's where pretty much the entire application is going to be here. So now let me just go here to the package, the JSON, and let me just make a few changes here. So I need to add a star script. So start, and right here let me just configure nodemon. So nodemon start that not start server that JS. So this is going to be the server. Let me make sure everything's correct. Okay, so now let's go back to the server application, and I'm just gonna bring in the packages that we're gonna use. So I'm gonna use express and course. So const express equal require express. There you go, and we're gonna use course as well. Okay, so now we need to specify the port. Const port, we're gonna use the port 301. Let's see, what else do we need? We need to start our application. So let's have a constant right here and then call the express function to start the express server. After that, we need to link our application to the port. So app.listen is going to do this for us. So passing the port. Now let's just pass in a console log function that's going to let us know the server is running right here. So console the log, and then just type in here server is running on port, and then let's just inject this green string right here and then inject the port, and that would be pretty much it. So let's we should test it. So let me type npm start, and the server is running. After everything's set up, let me set up course. So let me go down below here. So bar course options, and inside here I'm just gonna put origin. So let's put origin here, and HTTP here, HTTP, my local host, my frontend is going to be hosted in React, and I'm pretty sure since I'm using Beat, it's going to be in this port, then 5137, because that's the default port that Beat provides to you. Then let's pass in credentials right here, credentials, true. Okay, so now we need to call app. We need to call in the use function, and we're gonna use course. So let's open our course function that we imported above, and then pass in these options. And that would set up course for the application. And now since we're gonna work with JSON files, we need to specify that. So app.use again, and then call in express, and then use the JSON function right here. So we tell our API that we are gonna be working with JSON files essentially. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think that's it for the server. Now we need to implement the algorithm to calculate the carbon emissions. So here I'm just gonna call app the post, since it's going to be a post a function pretty much. Let me specify the URL. It's going to be in calculate. Okay, now let's call in a request and a response function. Request and response function, open square brackets here, and then let's call a try and catch block in case we need to handle any errors right here. So catching, and let me just type console the error. We can pass in this error, and after the error we can send the user a status code of 500. Now we need to grab the values that the user is going to pass in from the front end. So we have to destructure everything from the request. So let me call in request the body right here. So the first one is going to be the electricity usage in kilowatts hours. So let's just call it next we're gonna pass in the gas usage in gallons per month. All right, so now we need to pass in the flight. So let's pass in short flight. We're gonna have 3 types of flight, like medium flight, a long flight, and a short flight. And the next one we're gonna pass also the dietary choice. So choice. There you go. So these are going to be the requests from the body. All right, so the next things that we need to implement are the conversion factors for the formula. Each of these ones are going to have a converting factor. So let's create a few constants. So the first one is going to be the conversion factor for the electricity. All right, and the factor is going to be 0.3978. And as I already explained, this is going to be the number that we are going to multiply by the usage of electricity that the user is going to pass to us. So let's create a few more. So I'm just going to, copy and paste a few more here, and then we can rename them. Rotation factor is going to be another one. Okay, so now we need to pass in the factors for the dietary choice. And for this, we're going to use an object actually. We're not going to use just one single value. So let me open square brackets right here, and then we're going to have a few options. So we're going to have just 4 options. Let me change the name here to dietary factor. Dietary choice factor right here. Then let's pass in the 4 values that we're going to have. So we're going to have vegan as the first one, and the factor is going to be 200. Then we're going to have maybe vegetarian. For vegetarian, the factor is going to be 400. We're going to have pescatarian as well. The factor for pescatarian is going to be 600, and the meat, and the last one is going to be meat eater. So meat eater sounds like zombie, I know. And this one is going to be 100. I'm not really using real factors for these options. I'm just using this as a testing, so I can show you how we can implement this formula. Okay, so yep, that would be pretty much it here. Since we're gonna calculate everything per year factor, let me put here the year. So I'm just going to put here year, and the year is going to be 12. So now we can implement the formula. So let's start with the electricity. So let's have a constant right here, and then electricity emission. Let's create a variable right here that's called electricity emission, and then we have to multiply, right? Grab the electricity emission here that's passed by the user, and then you have to multiply it by the electricity factor. So boom, that would be pretty much it. Now we have to do the same for the transportation, right? So let me type const transportation emission, and then we're gonna grab the transportation emission usage from here, and then we have to just multiply that by the factor. So transportation factor, there you go. All right, so we have to do pretty much the same for the flights. So let's create a few more constants. Okay, so now we have to take care of the dietary choice emission. And since this is an object, we're gonna pass in the dietary emission factor right here. And if we don't have anything, we're just going to return 0, okay? So now that we're done here, we need to calculate the total emission for the year. So since we have, let's start with the flight, since it's the easiest one. Since we have 3 types of flights, short flights, medium flights, and large flights, all you have to pretty much do is just to sum them up. So let's start with const total emissions flight. Let me just create this variable right here, and then just grab the values and sum them up. So this one plus this one plus this one. All right, so that would be it for the total emission flight. Now we need to take care of the yearly. Let's do the electricity. So const total electricity usage, and then you have to just grab the electricity emission, and then you have to multiply that by 12, right? And that would be it. And then we have to do the same for the transportation emission. So we have to grab the transportation emission, and then just change this one to transportation. And for the dietary choice emission, you don't really have to do anything. This would be actually the final value of carbon emissions. Now we need to calculate everything, the total of everything for the year, your total carbon emissions for the year. So we just have to sum them up again. All right, so now we need to return everything as JSON. So let me just grab JSON object right here. Then let me create an object right here. So result is going to be equal to an object. Then I can pass in this object right here, and then just pass in the total year emissions. So And for the units, we don't really have to change anything because we are using kilograms for all these values. So let me save the changes, and the server is still running, so the application is good. Let's go to Postman and test. Okay, so we're here, and if you send a request to the endpoint, we're gonna have a response even if you send everything empty, because we don't really have a error handler. You're gonna see that we get our value sent as null, and then yeah, everything's working fine. The API is running good. So let's have some test values here. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this bar. Okay, so if you test the endpoint, you're gonna see we have a response, everything's working. And if I check my response, I'm having almost at 12,000 carbon dioxide per year, which is, I think the average for Americans are 15. That's what I saw in a few posts. And well, you can Google that if you're really interested in this topic. Backend is working, so now we can go ahead and go to React. So now we're back in VS Code. I'm gonna open just another window in the terminal, npm create bit latest. So just click enter, then you have to just Y to proceed, to give a name to the project. I'm just gonna name it Frontend framework. So we're gonna be using React, choose TypeScript, and that's pretty much it. Let's navigate to the front end, install dependencies, and then we can run the application and make sure everything is working. Okay, so everything's ready. Let me clear the console, and we're gonna install 2 more dependencies. All right, so let me install Axios chart.js, and we have to install React chart.js 2. Okay, so install these 3 dependencies, and once they're installed, go to package.json, make sure that you have everything that you need here. Okay, it's not here. Go to the front end, go to this package, the JSON. We have Axios, Chart.js, React, and everything's ready to start the project. So another thing I'm going to do to set up my project is I'm going to install Tailwind, since I'm not going to use CSS for this project. So I'm going to go to the website really quick. If you go to the website, you're gonna see these instructions, install Tailwind with Bit. So I already created my project, so I can skip this step. So we're gonna copy and paste these 2 commands. Okay, so just paste those commands in your terminal, and you're gonna see that you have this file. Okay, so let's go back to the website. Now we need to replace the Tailwind config.js. So let me copy and paste this one. So just delete this file completely and copy and paste this one. Now we need to go to our CSS main file. So you have to go to main the CSS, this one, and I'm just gonna, delete everything here and copy and paste these 3 things. Save the document, and I'm just gonna delete my app CSS since we're not gonna use it. Let me see what else we can do here. So we can delete everything here in this app function. All right, so now that we're back here, let's replace that with this. All right, so now we can save the changes here, and let me make a little bigger my code so you guys can see everything. Let me get rid of the terminal. Oh, well, we have to test the application, right? So let me go ahead. In order to test the application, just type npm run dev. I'm in the browser, and then you can see the application is working. We have the underline that we specify in the Tailwind CSS and the command in the component before, so we can get started working in the project. Okay, so here I'm going to need a few things. I'm going to start with my use states, because I have to set the states for the form data that we're going to use, and then for the results. So pretty much let me specify a constant here, and then call this form data. Then we can name it set form data, and inside here we're going to have some default values for the form. All right, so we're gonna have pretty much everything that we had in the backend, but just default to 0 or just empty. So I think it's all of these values, so we're gonna just copy and paste them. So let's grab them, and we can paste them here, and then just specify their values. So this one is going to be empty, and the dietary choice, let's have a maybe we can specify vegan as default value. All right, so save the changes. Now we need another use state for the results. So let me grab this part, and let me just close it here, and then we can change the name to result and set result. And by default, let's have a null value here, and then let me specify the type here, just have any, and that's going to take care of the results. Now let me create the function that we're going to use to fetch everything. So let's call it handle submit. Let's make it an asynchronous function. The type here, the event here is going to be React form. So React, let's have this prevent default to prevent the page from refreshing after we submit. And then let's have a try and catch here. So try catch. We can just have a pretty standard console log error here. Okay, so inside here we're gonna have a response after we call the fetch. So let me specify my URL. So it's http localhost 301. Inside here you're gonna have a fetch object here that we're gonna have to specify the method. So we're sending a post request. Let's grab the headers as well. So let me have another object here, and then it has to be content type, and then specify application JSON, so your application knows that we're working with JSON. And okay, that's it here. And in the body, just call JSON stringify to make your form a string. And that would be it here. So now below here, let's grab the data. So const data, or the response from the form, and then call await the response to JSON. And then we can set the data to the result, right? So set result and then pass in your data. And that would take care of this part. So let me save the changes, and then we can go back here, and I'm gonna take care now of some of the UI so we can start seeing the form. Okay, so since we're gonna design the UI right now, I'm just gonna have my half screen. I'm gonna divide my screen into half so you guys can see the design. So yeah. So let's have a class name right here, and this is going to be the parent div from the entire application. So I want to have a minimum height for the screen. So let me see if it's detecting. Yep, it's detecting tailwind. So perfect. So now we're gonna have a flex. We're gonna have items in the center. Let me specify that right here. Let me justify the content. Justify center is this one right here, and then we can have a padding of 5, and let's have a flex as a column, right? So we're gonna have 2 columns in. And let's have flex as column. Let's flex call this one right here as my background. Instead of having a color, I'm going to have a background image. So that's why I'm going to specify that here. So background image is this property right here, and then you have to specify. Let me specify the URL function from here, and then let's inject my image. Now I need to import my image, so I'm gonna go to the top of the file, and here let's import background image from, and my image is in my assets folder. Assets right here, it's this one. Let me just go here and I'm gonna show you. It's this one right here. That's going to be the background image. It's gonna be my background image. So let me close the file tree. And yep, that's pretty much it. Let me grab it. Let's go below here and let's inject it. Let's save the changes. And as you see, you're gonna see now the background image is on white. We have an image. So all right, perfect. Now inside this div, we're gonna have another div. So let's create this div. Let's specify the class name, and I want the background to be gray. And then we can specify a gray of 200. Let me have a padding of 10. We can also have a width. I want the width to be full width, so you specify that like this. Then the max width screen too, max width screen, and I want it to be large. There you go. So you can see if you hover over, you're gonna see the CSS properties equivalents for CSS. So yeah, that's pretty nice. Let me have a style right here because I want to have another image. So I can just maybe copy and paste this part. Okay, so that's going to be the image that we're going to use, but I'm not going to use that image. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to paste it again. I'm going to name it just background 2 for simplicity. And then I'm going to grab my other image, this forced JPEG, and grab the name here. Let's go and scroll down. Let's paste it, and yep, that's gonna be the top of the calculator. And I think we're done here. So yep, let's go inside my div, and inside here I'm going to specify just an h1, and inside here let me create an h1, and then let's name it my carbon footprint. Now let's have some styles here, so let me put class name, and then we can just make the text bigger, so text 5x L there. Now we can make the text bold, so font bold. Let's have a margin of the bottom of 6. What else we can have? Let's center the text as center, and we can also have the text white. That's gonna make it look better. Text white. Now save everything, and then you're gonna see this change. Okay, now let me all right, so below here I'm going to just copy and paste it, and I'm going to change this to P. This is going to be just this by Stefan Dev, just my YouTube tag. And all right, so that's too big, so let's make it maybe 1. All right, so this is going to take care of the top label of the calculator. So now let's go below this div. All right, so this is going to be the wrapper of the calculator. So let's have a flex, let's have it a column here, flex col. Let me scroll down and find it here. So now let's have a media query, so MD, and when the screen is a medium size, it's going to be a row. So let me change that to row. There you go. Now we can have a gap here of 8, so we have some space. I think I forgot a slash. There you go. So now we need a background gray, so gray, and it's not gonna be so dark, so maybe a 200. Let's have a padding of 10. What else do we need? We need the full width as well, so width the full. And let's have a max width of large. All right, so max width screen of large. There you go. Okay, so that's gonna take care of that. Now let's create the div for the calculator. This was the wrapper of the calculator. Now let's have a class name here, and now let's specify another property. So I want this one to be white. So let's have a padding of 8, so it looks nice. Let's have a rounded corner, so rounded large. There you go. And maybe we can have some shadows in the corner, so shadow. So if I refresh the changes, you're gonna see this is the wrapper, and then inside here this white div is the calculator. So now let's fill the calculator. We can start with an H1, so let's have an H1 right here, and then let's name it carbon footprint calculator. Now let's create a class name here, and we can have a text, let's see, text of 3XL. That's gonna be good. Let's have a font bold, there you a bottom margin of 6, and then let's center the text. All right, so below the H1 we're gonna start our form, so we're gonna have a form here, and then let's create we already created the function, so we can have on submit, go above here, and you can pass in the submit function. And then we can style it, so class name, and then have some space here, some space white. All right, so this is going to be our form. Now we need inputs, so let's have a div for the inputs. Let's have a label as well, so we're gonna have a label too, and then below the label we're gonna have our inputs. Let me create the input here. Let me save the changes, and now we have our input. So you can see it if I click here. So now let's style it. So first let's start with the div for the wrapper of the input. So we can have a flex, and we want the input below the label, so let's have a column here. So flex the col. All right, let's save changes. Now we need to take care of the label, and then let's name the let's name the label. So this is going to be the electricity usage, so electricity usage. Now our class name, so let's have a margin bottom of 2. Now let's style the input. So first let's have a name or a type, and the type is going to be a number, so the users can only pass in numbers. Now let's have a name here, so the name is going to be, so the name is going to be electricity usage in kilowatts. Now let's have a class name here, and the class name, let's have a border. Now let's have a color for the border, so border gray, and then maybe 300. Let's make them rounded, so rounded MD, and then we can have a padding of 2. So let me save the changes. All right, save changes, and then you can see the input, so it looks nice. Now we need to pass in the values too, so let me have the value, and here we have to call our form data. So let me call form data, and then we have to pass in what we're going to pass. So this is the electricity usage. What the electricity usage is this one right here. Now we need to set an onChange function, so let me have onChange. So whenever we change the value, this updates. So I haven't created that, so let me just name it onChange. And I'm gonna go to the top of the file. Let's create this function. So now let's make the screen bigger for now. So let's have a constant here. Now let's create an arrow function here, and we have to specify a few properties here. So the type is going to be a React change event. Okay, so we're gonna have an event of type React change event. So it's gonna be an input element or a select element. Now we need to destructure the value. So let's destructure the name and the value. So name and value. And let's grab that from the target. So event.target. Now we need to set the form data, right? So let's call in our set. All right, so that's how you set the form data. So now we can go back here and let's keep working on the style of the form. So I'm just gonna grab these two inputs and this label, and I'm going to copy and paste it a few times. And let me save the changes here, and then you're gonna see the inputs. So we have 5 inputs here, so let's work on those. So the first one is ready, so let's go and change the second one. And this one is going to be for the transportation. All right, so this one is ready. So this one is also a number, so you can choose a number here. All right, so this one is also a number, so we can just choose the number here. So it's ready. Now let's go below here. All right, so we're done with the input. So now let's create a select for the dietary choices. So let me create another div here. Let me copy and paste this div, and inside here we're gonna need the same. We're gonna need a label first. Now let's create a select, and let's pass in a few options. So option, and then I'm going to just name it. The first one is going to be vegan, and then we have to pass in here a value. So the value is going to be vegan as well. And then we can just copy and paste it a few more times. So actually just 3 more times, and then just change these names to vegetarian. Now we need to grab the values from the options. So let me have a name here first. So this is going to be a dietary choice. Grab the value, and the value is going to be form data, and then the dietary choice. There you go. Let me grab the value now, and then we can put it here in the name. Now we need to have an onChange function here, and that's just gonna be our handle change function. And lastly, we need to pass in a few classes here. So let's have a border. Now let's have a border grade. So border gray, and then have a 300 here. And lastly, let's have a padding of 2. All right, so now if you select everything, you're gonna see that we have the options here. All right, so below this div, I'm going to have a break, and then I'm going to copy and paste again this container, and we're gonna have a button inside here, right? So let's create a button. So button here, and then let's just name it calculate. Let's pass in a few classes. So I guess I'm going to make this screen bigger now. So we can pass in a few classes, and also the type, which is submit, so I can trigger the form. Now let me pass a class name here, and then let's make it background blue and 500. And let's have a hover color. So on hover, we're gonna make it a little bit just darker. So background blue and 600. Let's have a text white. Let's have padding for the sides, and then for the top and the bottom, so padding Y and 2. Now let's have a rounded MD. Now let's have transition colors, and then the duration as at 300. Duration 300. Let me minimize VS Code, and we're gonna see these change. All right, perfect. Now we need to create the div for the results. So create another div here, and then we can maybe put a comment for us. So results. So let's have a class name here, and then the background is going to be white. Let's have a padding of 8. Let's have a rounded large. There you go. Have a shadow, and also have large as well, and also have large, and then flex is going to be 1, so it aligns with the other container. Now let's have an H1 here. H1. Let's have more classes here. Class name, and then make the text as 3XL. Let's have a font bold. This one right here, and MB of 2, so margin bottom 2. Then let's name it this one, and now let's name this one as yearly emissions statistics. Perfect. Now let's have a break here. And now we need to pass in our results. So it's going to be an object containing the results. And also we're going to have a graph. That's why I earlier installed React Chart.js 2 and Chart.js. So I think we should take care of that first. So we can just pass in the graph right here. So we have to scroll up and we have to bring in a few imports. So let me import bar. And we also need to import the chart and register tables. Okay, so import chart and register tables, and that's just in the documentation for Chart.js and npm, and in their website you can check this out. Now below the function, we first have to register the chart. So chart, the register, and then just passing the register tables right here. That's going to make your chart work. Now we need to create a chart, and for that first we need to declare the default state of the chart, which is going to be with empty values. So let's destructure that. So let's create a use state for that first. So cons here, and then let's destructure the values here. So the chart data, this is going to be the default data for the chart. Now set chart data. All right, we have our function here. Now let's call in use state and just pass in any. All right, and now we have to have an object inside here, and the first thing that you have to pass in is the labels. So labels here, and we're gonna have labels such as electricity, transportation, or travel. All right, these are gonna be our labels. Now we need a data set. So calling data set. All right, now we need to specify these property data sets, and inside here we're gonna have an object that's going to contain a few properties. So the first one is the label for the chart. So let me have a label here, and then we can call it CO2 emissions. So we have to destructure that from the result object and then pass in the value. So let me just go here to my server, and we're gonna grab these 4 values with the exception of this the total yearly emissions. So let me just gonna grab them like this. So this is going to be your data, and we also have to take in consideration, since this is gonna be the default value, we have to grab the data or a 0. So that's going to be actually the default value is going to be 0. You're gonna see that on the graph. So let me put a 0 right here, and that's going to take care of the data labels. So now, all right, so I'm going to paste these values, and this is going to be the background color for the bars and the border color for the bars as well. And we can also pass the border width. So let me specify that now. And that's just going to be a 1, okay? So that would take care of the data set. Now we're gonna go below here and we're gonna specify the chart options. So let me going to be an object here. So now we need to pass in the scales. And I'm just getting all this information from the documentation from Chart.js. So don't be scared of all these boilerplate. Now we have to code these attributes. So begin at 0 true. So we're pretty much done with the chart configurations. Now let's scroll back down here, and then let's continue with our UI. So it's going to be below this bar here. We're going to call in our bar component. So call in the bar component, close it, and then you're gonna hover over and you're gonna see that it needs a few properties. So let's add the missing attributes. So in data, we're gonna pass in the chart data that we just created. We have to pass in the options as well. So pass in options and then pass in chart options. And all right, that would take care of the graph. So now let's continue working on these. So now the results, let's pass in the results here, and we're going to check if we have results. We're going to show all this data here. So if there's results, we're going to show here a div. Let me create a div here. Here we're gonna have air travel, and inside here let's have 2 objects. So the first one is going to be the result. So here's going to be the result of the total emission from flights, and then we have to grab in the value. So grab the value here, and then that would be it. Let me have a space here. So we're gonna have a space here, and below here let's have another object, which is going to be the unit, right? So we also pass in the unit. So results, the total emission from travel, from flights, and then let me pass. And I'm just gonna copy and paste these 3 more times so we can make this a little faster. So all right, so let's save the changes here, and now let's change the values. So it's gonna be this one is going to be, so this is going to be the second one. So let's put electricity. Okay, so now the last one is going to be the emissions from your dietary choice. So let's change this as well. So here, dietary choice. All right, so we're done here. So we're missing the last one. So let me just grab this one again. Let's copy and paste it. And this is going to be actually the total one. So let's have a all right, so instead of this dietary choice, let's switch it to the total yearly emission that we're passing from the backend. And maybe we can refactor this. So not really. So just have a total here. So it's going to look nice. And let me make a space here. And that's going to be it. Like, I think we're done here. So we can test the application now, but it's not going to be updated. We're just going to see the graph and everything, but we still have to set the chart data, the data that comes from the backend here in our handler function. But let's test the application first, and then we can take care of that. So let me go back to the browser. All right, so once I run the server again, this is the application that we see right now. So we have our graph. We don't have any values because we have everything default by 0. And yep, this is the form. When we press calculate, we want to make the request to the backend and see this data change in real time. So let's go and take care of that, right? So we have to go back here, and what we pretty much have to do, since this is our data, this is our object or default data, we need to update this chart data with this set chart function, and we have to call this function, of course, after we call in the backend. So after we click the button, and that's going to be, of course, right here. After we have set the data in the result object from below, we're going to update the chart, right? So let me just open parentheses and open an object here, and then I'm going to copy and paste this information here. So we're going to pretty much need the same labels. Now let's grab this data set list here and let's paste it above here. So and instead of the results, you just have to change that for your data constant here, because this is what contains the results. So just put here data. That's pretty much it. So let's save everything, and now we can refresh the server, and we're gonna see our application finish. Okay, so we're back in the browser, and this is the application running. And let me just show you. If you click the button, you're gonna see that we have a response from the backend, because we have a default value for the vegan choice of 200 kilograms of CEO of emissions per year. So if you change these to vegetarian, it's going to change here. You can see the values here when you hover over the graph. So let's have some default values here. Let's have a 700 kilowatt usage per month. For transportation, gasoline, maybe 100 gallons per month, which is kind of a lot. Flight, maybe let's have one short flight and one long flight over the years. So yep, let's calculate everything. And so yep, once you submit everything, you're gonna see the results. And if you change, the values, you can play around with these values, and then you're gonna see whatever you want to put. And it's pretty cool because everything is updated in real time. And below here you have a total of everything. So everything's working. I hope you like it. If you like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments down below.